Just a quick word for housekeeping. You may wish to switch your view to speaker view. There will be some slides presented and you might be able to see the presenter better that way. I'm sure you're all very used to proper Zooming at this point. We're really grateful you could all be here. I just want to take a moment to thank Phil Rumsey and Carly Norton, and also Matt from the Lieutenant Governor's staff for their work in collaborating with us to help host this event today. And now I'm actually going to turn it over to Svante Myrick, Mayor of the City of Ithaca, for just a few words before we get started.
Thank you. Svante here, coming to you live from, well, I wish, from the Ithaca Commons. I wanted to make this my virtual background because the Lieutenant Governor and her team were so instrumental in helping us to rebuild the Commons, to invest in our downtown. And that's why I'm thrilled to be here to introduce her today. I had a longer introduction planned, but she's extraordinarily busy. They are distributing vaccines in New York State right now, and I have to say, doing a remarkable job. 99% of the vaccines that New York State has gotten from the federal stockpile they have administered, a truly incredible feat. And I got to tell you that in the year, I've been working with the Lieutenant Governor and her team since she was elected. And in this last year, I've watched them be laser focused on two things. One is controlling the pandemic, saving lives, getting us through to the other side. And the second thing is assisting the economic recovery. And watching that laser focus and the results it's produced has just given me such great confidence in our leadership in New York State. And in the friendship of Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul. Her amazing abilities should not be surprising given that she began her career in local government, where all the best government employees are, as deputy clerk and as clerk of Erie County after working in DC, including for the late, great Senator Moynihan. She has been a true friend to the city of Ithaca and to Tompkins County. And I want to allow her to give a presentation and get back to work, getting us all those vaccinations. So without further ado, I'll introduce you to our wonderful Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And first of all, Jennifer, thank you for the chamber hosting this. I believe we did this a year ago today at the Cinemopolis. Am I pronouncing that right? Yeah, was that fun? That was like the Oscars. Everybody's so excited. We're talking about the low unemployment rate and all the jobs that are coming and new businesses coming and the culturals, the arts. That was a fun event. And I'm having flashbacks to how exciting it was and the energy that I felt there. But we're going to try and rechannel that from there to this Zoom call today and look forward to our days of getting back to that incredible venue as soon as possible. Mayor, you've been a phenomenal friend to me and the administration, and I love seeing the fact the sun finally rose on your backdrop there. When I saw it earlier, it was nighttime, so I thought, wow, you're in a different time zone. But that is a reminder of how government at the state level can partner with our local leaders like you, Mayor, to transform downtowns. And I remember us walking and knocking on the doors of people when the streets were shut down and there was just a lot of construction and a lot of anxiety about how long it was going to take to finally be done so the businesses could reopen without all the hassle that was going on. And you kept it going. You kept that positive spirit, momentum, and now to see how beautiful it is. I have snuck in and out, sometimes officially, sometimes unofficially. I was officially in Ithaca in October. We went to Rionics and talked about how an incredible company in Lansing is received $750,000 from the state of New York to help them invest in COVID testing strategies, and that was phenomenal. I mean, that was when I walked through there, I was just in awe of the talented people that are working on life-saving technology to be able to help us get through the pandemic. So that was my fun side, and we got together over at Argos, and what an operation that was! A lot of cool outdoor dining facilities. So I just bragging about that all over. But in the summer, I did slip in. I think Fred Bond is actually on here, who is kind of my ambassador to all the cool state parks in the region. And we went to I think Alan Tremaine Park. I was over there and went on the Black Diamond Trail that a few years ago I had actually opened up, but then I snuck on there with my husband, and it wasn't like Black Diamond skiing though. I want to say kind of a misnomer, and I know the history of the Black Diamond, but I was thinking, oh my God, this is gonna be going down like a really steep slope, but it really wasn't. So it's very manageable. But I love slipping in. I stopped at Luna, I stopped and walked around, and I'm always meeting people from Cornell and from Tompkins Community College, and you really just have a phenomenal, and the ecosystem sounds kind of thrive, but it really is true. There's a synergy between academia, the community, the elected leaders, the thought leaders, the people who come together, the business community. It is phenomenal. What an example of a can-do spirit. So I'm really happy to be back talking to my friends in Tompkins County, but also I think Martha Robertson may be on the call too, another great ambassador who's made sure I understood every corner of the county and all the needs of the county legislators. So to Martha, the legislators who are on, and also the elected officials, I thank you. And again, thanks to Phil and Carly for helping us put this together and doing a crowd build. A crowd build's a little bit easier when people just have to go into their den or their office and, or their bedroom and flip on the screen, but we will get back together in person before long. There are still some good news stories, despite the fact that we've been through this pandemic. I would say that the infection rate statewide is in a very good place, but let's look at Tompkins County. I believe the infection rate, maybe yesterday or today, 0.3%. I checked that twice to make sure that I wasn't missing something. You sure you don't mean 3%? It was 0.3%. Wow, that says the people, and I saw this when I was riding my bike in the summertime, outdoors, people had masks on. They weren't near anybody. They're riding their bike alone and they had their mask on. So that just shows that when a community, understands the role that each individual plays, they can come out on top of this. And that is why this region is going to be poised to be one of the very first to say, yes, everyone's vaccinated, we're COVID-free, and just get back to normal and get into our wonderful restaurants without any concerns, and get into our entertainment venues and our classrooms and just feel normal again. That's all we want to do, is just feel normal. I want to shake hands and hug people again. So our unemployment rate's looking pretty good though too, compared to the rest of the area where we had been. We're down to about Southern Tier 5.8, but again, Tompkins County was 4.3. These are December numbers. I think they're still continuing to trend in a better direction. And I will go through some of the highlights of the budget presentation, but just in terms of the region, it was important for us to figure out, as we're dealing with a severe budget situation, can we keep projects like downtown revitalization or the Regional Economic Development Council money? Can we keep those programs in place? And right now the answer is yes. The governor's budget, which I'll be talking about momentarily, does include funding for those. And they have really been a catalyst for helping so many downtowns and so many businesses expand. And we realize, as much as we may be short on money, and it's probably not the best time to be spending, if you do not make these investments now, then we're going to be suppressing our recovery. So we have to just be smart, get that money flowing again, and deal with it as we will. So I think that's my overall thoughts. I'm going to go through this. You'll find that I do speak a little faster and quicker on PowerPoints than the governor does. So if you guys have a commitment or a Zoom call in a little bit, I'm sure you're going to make it, because I talk fast. But here we have just the start. Okay, I got to figure out how to use this. Okay. There's the Capitol. Haven't spent much time there. Yeah, I think we all breathe a sigh of relief when this phenomenal year finally concluded. So it was a rough one for all of us. But let me see why the next page is not popping up. Okay. Okay, the governor spoke about a bold plan, and we are going to be very bold. Nothing, you're not going to be shocked at any of these. We're going to defeat COVID. Again, the very good news today about Johnson & Johnson coming out of the market, hopefully very soon. They said they'll have over 100 million doses by June, which I really wish was March, but we have to deal in the realities we have. But we are going to be continuing to make sure that we get that life-saving vaccine out there. Again, we're told by the experts you need to vaccinate 70 to 90% of all New Yorkers. We have administered 99% of everything we've been given so far, so that's not the challenge. But I think there's going to be populations that are going to be enthusiastic, and there's interest and wait lines and a lot of frustration, people trying to get them. We're going to hit a point at some point where we're going to have to be persuading people to do this. And so the reluctant ones, the hesitant ones, are the population we'll be talking about later on down the road. The short-term economic crisis is how we make restaurants whole again, the businesses that may have been closed, that lost their key seasons over the holidays, et cetera, and also the people who lost their jobs. Plan for our long-term economic future. And that's actually the exciting part. If we can just keep our positive attitude, which I really believe is what we experience in the Southern Tier and in Tompkins County, is people that are just optimistic generally about the future. We have to keep that going and not let this be a setback that takes us down, and rather lean into this and find a way to capitalize on some of the lessons learned, but also, what are our strengths? I mean, how we continue to support agriculture, our farmers, and our energy competitions. Green energy is going to be the key to everything. And I'm trying to do my best to encourage young people to go into those fields. I think that's where the jobs of the future lie. And again, looking at some of the changes in society, Zoom calls, telehealth services, which will really help people in rural areas, making sure we have broadband for people, because we've realized that this has been a huge disparity in outcomes in terms of how our children are learning this year, making sure that it's affordable, and also systemic injustices, as I mentioned, even something like broadband access or healthcare access. So we're going to keep vaccinating people. Public Health Corps is going to be established, and we're going to hire people to assist with this, because the sad news is, and the reality of this is that this may not be the last time that we encounter such an assault from a virus, and we have to be ready and learn from the lessons and be ready with people that are trained in this field. And I know that Cornell is helping us with SUNY to get lots of volunteers as well, putting together an online program. And I think everybody should do this. I mean, just knowledge is power. All of you are thought leaders. You wouldn't be on this call. And I think that's something everyone should take advantage of. Telehealth, when I was in Congress a few years back, we spoke about telehealth. It was available. I was on the Armed Services Committee and trying to get telehealth services to our rural veterans who were not close to Veterans Administration hospitals at all. And the problem was that the insurance companies would not cover for the time that a doctor was, or a healthcare person was speaking to someone over a computer or an iPad or a laptop. Now that's changed. And so this is really going to be transformative, and it should result in much better health outcomes for people, and also expansion to substance abuse treatments. That, again, there's just always going to be a shortage of locations where people can get medication assisted treatment or get counseling. And if we can do it electronically like this, that is going to be transformative. Also, this is what I was doing at Rionics and some of our other state businesses, is to talk about how we can invest in them for research into testing and vaccines, but also just not even having enough masks and gowns and vials and swabs a few months ago in America. It was really brought us to our knees in the early days when we had to scour the planet in search of a mask and competing with other countries to get the limited supply coming out of China. Well, lesson learned right there. And we're going to be working to reduce that dependency, to get down to zero. And let's make it here in New York State. And that should also be a boon to our local businesses who are able to, change their assembly lines and help us out here. And many of them have. As I mentioned, went to Rionics, and that was just, I don't know if they give out tours to everybody, but you need to see this. This just blew me away and how sophisticated that was. So the governor has talked about this a lot. We were the first one to really get knocked back with this pandemic. We were the epicenter. We knew the virus came to New York from Europe. It got off on our planes and the various international airports we have. It spread in our community. So everything that we had to deal with was really a first time. And yes, there was a nursing home in Washington State. Okay. But we were the ones really clobbered with this. And as a result, we incurred more expenses. We didn't have any lessons to learn from. So every state that came after us were able to prepare. We did not have the early warning system. So we have a huge budget deficit from the expenses we had to incur, but also the loss in revenues. And that's just something we can't handle. That is a number that no matter what we do, we cannot manage that on our own. And so we think it's very logical that hardest hit states should get a bigger share of a formula. Right now that's being considered in Congress. I think the Senate was up till 5:30 in the morning working on this. God bless the Majority Leader Chuck Schumer for the incredible work he does, and Kirsten Gillibrand right there with them. And the House will have an opportunity to weigh on this. Then let's get this money out. But it's also the early packages under the last administration. They were dividing up the money equally among the states. And so people at a place like, I'm trying to remember, I was Montana, got $3 million per COVID case when the number was about 300,000 per COVID case in New York. I mean, the disparity was incredible. it cannot be based on population. It has to be where the hardest hit was, and that's what we're fighting for right now. So we figured out worst case scenario, if we get $6 billion, best case scenario, which we think is fair, would be 15 billion. So we really, our budget timing is right now, it is due. It has to be approved by the end of March. And we're still waiting to know what our share from the federal government is. The second we get that number, we'll know our destiny. Here's the worst case scenario. We have to find 9 billion more. And I don't even want to go through these. This is too depressing to think about all the cuts we're going to have to incur. But if we get it right, we can cover our costs, get money out to local governments, which I know is critically important, and support all of our agenda, our healthcare, affordable housing, childcare, labor, education. Also, the state and local tax deduction, which was put in place in the so-called tax reform bill in 2017, a gross injustice where New Yorkers are paying, I think the governor estimated $34 million a day in extra taxes as a result of this, and that's not fair. There is no reason why we should continue subsidizing the rest of the nation by double taxing New Yorkers in places like New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. So we are aggressive. We're going after this, trying to remedy that. So that hurts our state. It hurts our ability to get money out for local governments. It's a double taxation. 26,000 to 690 filers have paid more because of that. And the cost, and that's a low number for many parts of our state. Quickly transitioning, there's not a real good transition point here, but we're talking about revenue raisers. I launched the hemp summit a few years back in your community and talking about the legal uses of hemp, trying to catch up with some other states like Kentucky that had really exploded, but also it is time, it is 2021. We are surrounded by states that have legalized adult use recreational cannabis. We believe that it'll create jobs, it'll help create tax revenue and allow us to have a social equity fund to help the communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the enforcement of these laws. So that's what we're hoping to do. We hope that passes in the budget very soon, something I've been advocating for a long time. And we believe that the forces have lined up to make sure that that happens. The other way we can get people back into venues, and the governor spoke about how we did this test to get people watching the playoff games of the Buffalo Bills. Sorry, they didn't make the Super Bowl, but next time. And we tested over 7,000 people very quickly, the day before, and they had a show at the gate before they were presented admission that they tested negative. So we can do a variation of that and have rapid testing sites, in school buildings, in office parks, and in restaurants and theaters, just so people can either confirm that they had a vaccination or a negative test. I think that's what's going to give people the comfort of knowing they're safe. You can have a restaurant open, but if people are still going to be nervous, or a theater open, they're still going to be nervous about it, it's going to hurt your ability to have, businesses be as successful as they otherwise would be. I think this is going to help people overcome that hesitation. We need the arts to return, and certainly the value of the arts in your community as well. But we're going to do pop-up performances and try to help the sectors that have been hit so hard. I mean, I feel so bad about Broadway. Oh my God, there's so many people, and they don't make a lot of money to start, but the people work on the sets, the carpenters, the costume designers, the actors, they've really been hit hard too. And it's we have to get Broadway back, because that is one of the reasons people come to New York City. And I don't need to tell you that the economy of New York City with its tourism element really subsidizes, helps pay for many of the expenses that we incur in the rest of the state. So there's also a selfish reason why, if you don't live in New York City, you still want them to be very successful. We also know there's a lot of people have been hit hard with the loss of a job and the reduction in unemployment payments compared to what they had received earlier. So we're going to make sure that people are not thrown out of their homes during this time, residential evictions, continue our investments in projects like Binghamton University's Health Science Campus in the Southern Tier, continue working on throughway stops, infrastructure all over. I mentioned green economy. There's a lot of jobs in the Southern Tier that are going to be focused on that. renewables. This is it. This is the future. Very excited about this. And there again, the Southern Tier area really has positioned itself as a leader in this. And it's not just our international competitions. It's just the universities have partnered with us. There's a lot of advanced manufacturing facilities in this area, and we think that this is going to be very, very much part of our future. Here's some of the projects. I've been to a number of these ribbon cuttings here, and we still have a challenge with workforce development. I hate the phrase workforce development because no one's quite sure what it means, but it's getting money out there to train people in companies or to get apprenticeship programs, to invest in people for high need jobs. And I speak to leaders of companies all the time. If I walk any factory floor, any facility, the first thing I say to the president, CEO, or the manager, tell me the skills you're looking for. Can people come here out of high school? They need a 2-year certificate. You know, how are you doing recruiting people? Do you have on-job training? This is really important, but more so than ever before, as we need people not in areas where there's such low unemployment as Tompkins, perhaps, but areas of the state where unemployment is high now. People have lost their jobs that may not come back. I think it was Luna when I had lunch with my husband this summer and sat down. I'm a former waitress. I'm expecting to see a waitress at the table or a waiter. And I went and ordered off an iPad. So that said to me, this is great. It's smart during a pandemic, but there's now someone who's not in that position. And that's what's happening all over the state. I mean, this is something that regardless of the pandemic was going to happen as technology replaces people. You go into McDonald's, you're ordering at a kiosk, that's one less person they need working there as well. So I'm thinking of these people who need to be taken from these jobs that are dispensable, unfortunately, and put into jobs that are sustainable, that the state needs, and that would also help them support their families. We also found, when you talk about, I mentioned at the outset, the disparity in outcomes for families and their children when they all of a sudden had to be learning from home. You could be you could be living in an area with access to high-speed broadband, but if you can't afford it, you might as well be in the desert. It doesn't matter. Your family can't afford it. And it is sad to see the families that, you know, the kids are pulling up to library parking lots and other places to try and get some of the Wi-Fi and capture it. So this should not be a barrier. It should be available to anyone who wants it. So we're going to be having the first in the nation mandate that there's affordable internet access for low-income families. Get rid of the healthcare premiums for families, trying to help them save money for people who are uninsured right now. Getting rid of, this has been hard during the pandemic because we had a rule that penalized unemployment recipients who work part-time. If you want to supplement, all of a sudden you lose your good paying job. You've never had to file for unemployment before. You want to take advantage of unemployment, but to supplement, you want to work part-time. We didn't let you do that. And this is just a reality recognition that there's a lot of people that are falling through the cracks because of that. Childcare, I was down in Ithaca this past summer with Senator Gillibrand as we were going around the state saying access to affordable childcare was a bad scenario before, and now it's a disaster with all the parents, particularly the moms, and the 2 million jobs that are now lost almost 100% by women across this country. Much of it had to do with the fact there was no one to watch children, whether they're infants, toddlers, preschoolers, or even now school age. School age kids still need an adult to watch them at home to make sure they're doing their schoolwork, and it really hit women hard. So we're trying to help reduce their co-pays, create more facilities, and encourage employers to provide childcare. And I spoke to someone in Manhattan yesterday who told me that there's one landlord who's finding out his building's being emptied out in Midtown. He just took 5,000 square feet, turned it into a childcare center, and has tutors to help the kids do their homework or their schoolwork, not their homework, their schoolwork, so the parents could come back on site and work. I think that is really the wave of the future. Enlightened employers need to provide something on site. Certainly when kids are back to school, it's different, but after school programs and for infants up to school age, this is what we need to be doing. All right, Nourish New York, this is phenomenal. I mean, I have to tell you, I went and visited many farmers in the early stages of this pandemic, and all of a sudden they lost their their customer. They were no longer needing milk from upstate New York in the schools. Kids weren't there drinking it. People were not buying fruits and vegetables upstate to serve in New York City restaurants. So they really took it on the chin. Meanwhile, we are seeing people lined up around the blocks or in cars, long parking lots from Long Island up to Plattsburgh, people having to be in food lines because their income was gone and they were desperate. So we connected farmers. We're paying farmers for their food to keep them going and getting it down to places of high need. I've been to many of these distribution sites. It is phenomenal to see what we're able to do on a dime. And I thank everyone at the Department of Agriculture in New York. Richard Ball's phenomenal, and all the entities that helped out with this. So we also talked about this, as we were dealing with the pandemic, we're dealing with the Black Lives Matter movement as the nation watched in horror the murder of George Floyd, and the rebellion and the long overdue protests against this really galvanized forces to say this cannot stay any longer. It has to be changed. And the governor said there are 700 local governments. We want to make sure you have a plan in place that shows that you've worked with the police department and worked with community leaders particularly, but also the elected officials to have a strategy, a plan to change policing strategies to make it more of a partnership and eliminate the fear of both sides. So I appreciate everyone. I appreciate the mayor and everybody who put these efforts together. It's critically important, not just to submit a plan to the governor, but to execute it and to make sure that it's modified and adapted to communities in the future. This has to continue. This is not a one-off, and that is due very shortly. We saw interesting dynamic with the last year elections. I'm glad New York worked out well, but we really thought that the early voting was great, and the ability for people to vote absentee without having to have that excuse, game changer. Really made access to the ballot box better than it's ever been in our history. So we want to keep that going. Some of them surprisingly take constitutional amendments to change the no excuse absentee voting requires votes of 2 consecutive legislatures and passing of the people on a referendum, which sounds bizarre, but it is. And we want to also speed up the vote counting because we saw that there were boards of elections that didn't start counting absentee ballots until after election day. So it took weeks for people to get results, and we need longer hours for early voting. As I mentioned, the no excuse absentee voting. And again, all these restrictions were just so unnecessary. And a lot of them were not, they were proposed over the years, but under the, I won't be political, but the Democrats assumed leadership of the Senate, and that made early voting available and a lot of other reforms that had been pent up for a long time. So even getting an absentee ballot, don't make it so hard on everybody. So that is a really broad-based approach to what we're looking at in the state, but I hope you have a sense that there is a better day ahead, and that places like Tompkins County, Ithaca, the Southern Tier really are poised to lead, and we should emerge from this even stronger. There is no reason why we can't. It is, it's about the will of the people, and you have enlightened leaders at the elected level that are helping to get us there as well. So I thank everybody for your participation, and we're going to reimagine, rebuild, and renew New York. So y'all still with me there? All right, good. Well, that's good. I see Martha Robertson now. That's great. I thought you were on, but no, but I do appreciate this chance. The chambers are going to really be important, Jennifer. You know how I feel about chambers in particular. As I started my mother's small flower shop right out of law school, I would have been lost if I didn't have the chamber to help explain to me about insurance and how to file this and how to do this in the clerk's office. So you'll be helping lead us to bring back our downtowns and our business community. It's really important. So I've got to jump and get back on my vaccine hub initiative here, trying to get this out to our communities as best we can. And just everybody pray every night for some miracle that gives us a bigger supply. I just want to tell you something. When people talk about the vaccine rollout, we have estimated that there are 15 million New Yorkers who should get vaccinated. We're subtracting out under 16 until that gets approved. 15 million New Yorkers. Right now, today, and it's going to increase in a few days with people with underlying conditions, but right now, 7.1 million people are eligible. Our supply has been averaging about 250,000 a week. On a good week, it gets up to 300,000. That's statewide. If we had enough doses to do every New Yorker, we'd be done with the state in less than a month. We have the facilities, the infrastructure, the equipment, the people. We could do it in a month, and that is the only barrier on why we can't officially declare an end to this with everyone being vaccinated. But that may change, and we'll continue to hope for more companies like Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca and others to be approved, and we get them into everybody's arms, and it's going to start getting better. So I just want to say, keep the faith. I look forward to seeing everybody again in person, either officially or with a bike helmet on and a ponytail. That'll be me slipping around when the weather gets good. And I love your community as all of you do, and look forward to a return trip soon. Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Mayor, for the nice introduction as well.
Well, thank you so much for being here. You know, we really appreciate that you love our community so much. It seems like it's pretty clear to me you come as often as you can, and for you to even join us virtually, we really appreciate it. You are working so hard, and so is your entire team. And you know, none of this is easy. Nobody had plans for any of this. But we're very, very grateful that we have the leadership we do at the state level, and that you are so dedicated to economic development and tourism, and that you understand what businesses are dealing with on the ground, because you've lived it and you've had experience with it yourself. It really is meaningful when people like you can actually relate to what it's like to be a day-to-day business owner, and what our local elected officials are dealing with at our community level as well. So can't thank you enough for being here. We always feel the support, and we certainly will support you in return as much as we can. So,
thank you. If there's any questions, if you want to send them to Jennifer or Phil and get them to us, we'll be happy to answer them. So, all right, signing off. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We appreciate you all taking time out of your Friday afternoon, what might be your first sunny Friday afternoon in quite some time. It's actually warm enough to be outside. I suggest you soak up as much vitamin D as you can, because it also helps fight COVID. Should you be so unfortunate, apparently we all need as much vitamin D as we can get. Thanks again for being here. We will record the chat so that we can follow up on those questions. And, you know, once again, great to see you all. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks again to the staff that provided support, and to the mayor for his introduction.
Thanks for doing this, Jennifer.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Jennifer. Thank you.
Always our pleasure.